Okay, good evening, and I am here on the negative side to argue that the use of embryonic stem cells is not morally unjust. The affirmative side, their basic claims were that using embryonic stem cells is equivalent to murder, and that the use of adult stem cells is as effective as embryonic stem cells. Okay, so first of all, it's not unjust. The embryos that are used under federal funding for scientific research are only taken from in vitro fertilization clinics, and these cells are ones that are frozen and not being used for in vitro fertilization, and they're going to be thrown away or frozen indefinitely. From University of Michigan, they state that thousands of embryos that cannot be used for fertility treatment are discarded as medical waste each year by in vitro clinics. And then from the University of Kansas Medical Center, unwanted pre-embryos are no longer needed for fertility purposes, and then they remain frozen and they're destroyed. So the loss of life, as they say, is going to occur no matter what. The embryos used in stem cell research come from in vitro fertilization, and these embryos have not been conceived, and there's basically zero potential that they're going to become a human being. From the embryos to use consist of 150 cells. There are about 8 cells inside that are actually the stem cells. And just to compare the 150 cells in this blastocyst, which is the part of the embryo they use, to compare that to brain of the fly is 100,000 cells in the brain of the fly. Also, organ transplants are taken from people who have been considered brain dead, which is they're considered legally and medically dead because they have no longer any brain function, but they have heartbeats, so some may consider them alive, but clinically they're dead. And blastocyst, the embryo, has not even developed any neurons or anything, any organ systems nearing that complexity. And their next point was that adult stem cells are just as useful as embryonic stem cells, and this is just not true. Adult stem cells normally only form tissues of the organ system that they come from. From University of Michigan, they have the ability to make just 1 or 2 kinds of tissue, such as blood and immune system cells, brain or muscle cells, whereas embryonic stem cells are pluripotent, which means they can differentiate into any one of the 200 different cell types in the body. And also, adult stem cells are difficult to obtain and produce stem cell lines with. This is because the cells do not reproduce as easily in a cell culture, and typically, according to the National Institute of Health, there's only a very small number of stem cells in each tissue, and once they're removed, their capacity to divide and create a stem cell line is very limited. They're also not as durable. They have a limited capacity to replace themselves, and this is according to the University of Michigan. Whereas embryonic stem cells are easily obtained and can form any type of cell. The National Institute of Health states that the major difference between adult and embryonic stem cells is their different abilities in number and type of differentiated cell types they can become. Embryonic stem cells can become all types of cells of the body because they are pluripotent. Also, they stated that adult stem cells have been in use for decades longer than embryonic stem cells. This is not really relevant, and embryonic stem cells have just as much potential, if not more, than the use of adult stem cells. According to the University of Michigan, some have criticized embryonic stem cell research by arguing that adult cells have delivered more treatments but that observation is misleading. While adult stem cells have been studied for decades, human embryonic cells were first isolated in 1998, and there has not yet been time to develop the human therapies for these, as they're still being tested on animals. But the potential is even greater to solve diseases such as Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. They also mentioned a case where a clinic purchased stem cells. This is a rare case, as under United States law, all scientific research using stem cells receiving funding from the federal government must only use stem cells taken from in vitro clinics with the informed consent of the donors of those embryos. Thank you.